Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of Unspoken Truth. I'm the founder of Mutual Respect and the host, and today we're welcoming back a returning guest, Draz Barrage from the podcast of 47, and we're going to touch on how men can best continue to find a purpose and not let this Christmas period become the last one they experience. So this conversation matters deeply to me, because I understand this trauma, not in theory and not read from a textbook, but through lived experience. I know what it's like to sit alone during Christmas when the silence is loud, the pain feels endless, and surviving feels like a moment-by-moment decision, especially for us alienated fathers. I didn't survive because it was so easy. I survived because I learned to stay. I forced myself to stay connected instead of isolating. I spoke honestly instead of burying. And I reminded myself that I didn't need to fix my entire life. I just needed to hang around. One more day, one more breath, one more reason. And I need every man listening, especially every alienated father, to understand this. When a parent is lost, the impact on their children can echo across a lifetime. Our kids don't need us to be perfect or even present in us alienated dads' situations. They simply need us to be alive and willing to protect when the time comes. Please hear this from the very bottom of my heart. Do not become one of the 47 this Christmas. Our children need us always, irrespective of distance, silence, or alienation. I want to be honest about something that's difficult for me to speak about. When I was first falsely accused of some vile allegations, I reached a point where I believed my children might be better off without me. I put things in place that I should never have put in place, and then the weight of what I was about to leave behind hit me. The guilt of abandoning my children broke through everything, and that was the moment in my life that it all changed. That was the moment I gave my life to my children. I realised my life was no longer mine to take. It belonged to them, not me. My purpose became staying no matter how hard it hurt. That choice saved me, and it's the knowledge I want to pass on. If you are struggling right now, your life still has meaning. Your children still need you. You are a needed person. You are worthy. And choosing to stay is an act of strength, not weakness. This conversation is about survival, responsibility, and mutual respect. About men holding the line for their children, for each other, and for the generations that come after us. Men, this is us. This is our line in the sand, and we don't bow, we don't break, and we damn sure don't walk away. Thanks for your time, Draz. How you been, mate?
Dan, that was impressive, mate. Thank you.
Well, it's as I touched before with you, mate, I've been working on it for a little while, and it's, you know, as blokes, we're told you don't want to show any emotion and you lock that up and you don't share too much. Well, fuck that. I think that's the very reason that pushes all these poor bastards to not being here anymore. So every man out there needs to be comfortable speaking their unspoken truth.
As we've discussed this in the past, my story is a little bit different to yours. My kids were older, and for me, it wasn't even the relationship ending. It was after the relationship that I have 3 children by had long ended, and it ended at least a decade before it, in effect, even though I was still hanging around the house and paying the bills. For me, it was a whole bunch of things all at once. I was isolated in the middle of nowhere. There was, again, like yours, it's a story of survival, not a boohoo thing. I do things every now and then, which even I scratch my head about, but I still do them. And I've always survived. But a combination of things got me to the point where I thought there was an easier option. And I did something, and a little voice inside my head told me to go somewhere else. I did that, and it just broke that, for lack of a better word, it was a fixation, and I've never looked back. The isolation from family, a whole bunch of stuff was going on. I won't bore everybody with the minute details, but we all have some shitty things that happen in our lives. And shortly thereafter, a guy I'd worked with, he didn't actually take his life, but not technically, and he didn't make the statistic. But he'd overdone a whole bunch of stuff. You get in little boxes from doctors, and he left 3 kids behind.
It's a very fine line, mate, isn't it, between just how fragile life truly is when it becomes an internal struggle. And we've touched base on this before, and just for the record, I'm bloody glad you decided to hang around, mate, because there's not enough of us genuine good blokes left. So from my point of view, thank you. But it is something that, you know what, Tony Miller said this to me, and it's a quote that I'll never forget, and that is, even if you manage to save one man, if you manage to turn him around from the edge of the cliff, from sharing your story, then it would be awfully un-Australian not to share your story. So, you know, and due to legal restrictions on both of us, you know, there's a lot more we could say, but we can't say it without putting ourselves directly in the firing line. So
some of us test that line a little bit closer, and
again, that's probably why we're friends.
It could have something to do with it. And my thing is, when you look at this stuff from a distance, you have no idea what people are going through. I mean, that's an understatement. You know, we don't even know ourselves particularly well. How are we expected to know anybody else? But my thing is, and what I've tried to stand up for and express at any opportunity at all. I mean, we're both wearing fairly interesting outfits that are designed not for corporate profits, but for getting people's attention. And the number of people I run into weekly that are either know of somebody who's gone through some crap, and thankfully not too often that it's totally unhappy, but they, you know, do lose the plot for a while. There's no harm in that. You know, that's just life. There's all sorts of things going to be thrown at us. I don't like using the term, but, you know, you're on the team. You've got through it. You've survived. There are no, you know, consequences, hopefully, for your kids, because you're not around to explain your actions. And you can be very easily misconstrued. You know, what you were thinking at the time gets taken, and you probably know who I'm talking about, as in who might be benefiting by misrepresenting what you went through, telling your story in their own eyes for their own purpose, which is probably why you're in this situation in the first place. And as you know, I primarily focus on false accusations, and I have absolutely no regard from the official narrative when it comes to that, because let's frankly, it's bullshit. If there's no ramifications for doing things like this, and I did mention I did do a quick presentation from my mate Grant, and the response I got back from one of his underlings saying that they've got no interest in counting how many people don't make it through a DVO situation, as in getting a DVO, which is the domestic violence order, whatever they call them this week. They change the names quite regularly. That to me is aiding and abetting manslaughter. That's not suicide. If you slap those things on people when they're going through some pretty shitty stuff in their life anyway, and you jump on one side of that argument without any investigation, and I'm happy to go toe to toe with anybody in a public forum, because I know they don't investigate anything. And that is just so irresponsible and such a horrific waste of life and a destruction or destroying families. It's hard to put into words without just swearing incoherently as to why anybody thinks this is a good idea. And, you know, it's still here. It's still happening. We have high profile stuff that happens every now and then of how fake some of this rubbish is. But it's, there is some chatter on social media, but there's very little stuff in the real world. You won't see this on the news. You won't see this, hell no, in the ABC. No politician will come within a kilometre of this, but they'll all tell you this stuff privately. If you know somebody who's gone through this stuff, keep tabs on them. I've done that for a few people. Thankfully, they were around, but it takes a couple of efforts to understand what you do and what you don't do. But at the end of the day, there's nothing you can really do that's wrong.
A good segue into the first question that I want to hit you with, Draz. And just quickly, I want to say this, and touching on what you just said, and it is a long-term solution to a short-term problem. And this is coming from somebody that spent 10 years in the legal system. So it doesn't matter how long it takes to get justification or accountability. I won't stop until I get it. And I know you're in the same position. But for those out there that are thinking, well, it's just too fucking hard, I don't want to be here anymore, please change your thought process, find a new purpose, look in the mirror and realize you're a valued human being and you're not to go anywhere, because we're all needed more than ever right now. So, right, mate. And given that Draz is also a member of the suicide prevention group in his little rural town, so he is somebody that has the expert opinion to share this. So I want to ask him, and I hope anybody out there that's considering doing something silly really listens to what's being said here. So, mate, what signs should we be watching for in our mates, brothers and fathers that tell us they're struggling, even if they tell us that everything's okay and they're fine?
Incredibly hard question, because, again, I don't want to be flippant about something as serious as that. The experience that I had wasn't mine with that gentleman that I've discussed with before. If you met him, you suspect that he was on some happy pills. He was almost overly happy. I mean, I didn't know him except for work and a couple of social things. So, and, after the event, everybody, oh, okay, we're all wiser. Number one thing, have they had a family breakdown, a major sort of nasty event in their life? That's the easy stuff. There could just be trouble at home that you're not aware of. It's not. I don't want people sort of jumping around at shadows, but you go from people who are overcompensating by being overly jolly, but everybody will sort of drop a hint if you're listening. And I don't mean, sitting around hugging each other and having D&Ms all day, every day. Most of us will sort of pick up with somebody that have got a certain mindset. And again, if you get it right, great. If you get it wrong, don't beat yourself up over it. Sorry, I can't really give you a 1 + 1 = something.
No, don't be sorry, mate. Your opinion might just be the very opinion that someone needs to hear. But let me follow it up with this, because this is very much in line with what you're saying, and that is, how can we as men normalize checking in, listening without judgment, and letting men speak honestly about their pain, especially as proud men that we are, when the pride takes over and it makes it very hard to ask for help or even share? Is there some trick, or is there something you can suggest? Back in the day, I used to do a bit of support work. I would suggest that if you ring somebody 3 to 5 times and they don't answer, then you basically tell them a little white lie and you knock on the door and say, listen, I was in the area, I just figured I'd stop in for a coffee. So is there, that's something that I was taught back then. So if you don't lay eyes on the person, then you can't truly believe what they're telling you over the phone, can you?
You can't. Another thing I do is, like I said, the checking in thing. If you're part of a network or, group of friends or, associates, you try and make it seem like it's a bit of a wave. Like, you go today, I go in 2 days' time. You always set things up for in the future. Oh, we've got a barbecue at Bloody Dave's. Don't forget that. Oh, could you bring such and such? And don't forget, you forgot to do that last time. Can you do it this time? Yeah. You break that chain of thought. The worst thing is the downward spiral. Now, most people are very good at hiding this stuff. Nobody's just going to say, oh, I feel like crap and this is what I'm thinking about. To initially, you sort of slow that down. by, like I said, give them something to think about in the future. And yes, you're absolutely right. If they're not answering phones, if they're behaving unusually, that's an easy one. But they can be just as easily, almost hyperactively happy. So I'd probably suggest anything that's changed. If a person's real keen on work or sport or whatever, some interest, and suddenly they don't give a rat's anymore and they're quite, don't care. Something's changed. And, thankfully, most of the time it's nothing at all. But it's good for people to know that somebody cares and is interested. I was shocked with interest in various times in my life, not exactly the darkest spot, where people just checked in for the hell of it. And, you pay that stuff back. I'd like to think of myself reasonably good with this sort of stuff, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm just saying I can read stuff reasonably well most of the time, but that it's worked once or twice, and I'll take that as a positive. Check on people, involve them in something that's going on in the future, and I tend to do what a lot of people are uncomfortable with. Just bloody well ask them.
Yep.
That if you're not comfortable in that position, don't do that, because you need to stay. You don't want to put the person off and then they avoid you on purpose for some other reason. But it's not about you. If you're in that position, it's the old don't go saving people if you can't swim, if they're in the water drowning.
Yep.
That sort of thing. You need to be in a position as well. If you're not, ask somebody else. You're the one with the straighter head than the person you're concerned about. Get somebody else involved.
Well, and it's funny because something you said in there resonated with me, and that was if something's changed. So, as an alienated father, anybody out there that's listening, if you know of a man that is now alienated and it's taken place this year or within the last couple of years, please don't think about it. Just roll up and knock on the door. Don't even consider letting them stay home by themselves. Try your best to make them get out of the house. Make them be involved, give them a chore, give them a purpose. Make sure, even if you've got to fabricate a purpose for them and say, listen, we're really running short this year. Could you manage to do a chook and bring it around? Give these men something to aim for to wake up, because when you sit around by yourself and you comprehend the reality that you're forced to live, and you know damn well sure in your heart of hearts that none of it's through anything you've ever done wrong, the hardest part will be to find the very reason not to do it. The easiest option will be, fuck this, I've had enough. I don't want to hurt anymore. I don't want to keep going through this. I don't want people to look at me with pity. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I'm fucking done. I'm out. That, and I say this, I've lost a real good mate to suicide, and I say this with the utmost respect to those that have taken their life, but it's a weak way out. You're not killing your pain, passing it on to everybody that's left behind. So please, by all means, for fuck's sake, reach out. I'll be home by myself. My phone's always on. You need to talk to someone, find me on social media, I'll send you my phone number. I'm pretty sure Draz will do the same thing for you. Please do not increase these statistics over this Christmas period. What would it take for every man listening to accept this truth? Asking for help is not weakness. It's actually an act of courage and responsibility as a man.
Hopefully not a lot, but the reality is it's quite a bit. My response to that is not directly answering the question, but giving people a bit of a light on the hill. If it's happening to you, as I said before, there's 90,000, give or take, people just in South Australia who've been through some version of what you're going through. So you're not alone, whether it's being stupid, being gullible, being in love with somebody who didn't give a rat's bottom. So the key thing is to know you're not, don't think you're special. You're not a one-off. There's tens of thousands of men out there. Yes, you're going to go through some crap. You might, have one or two drinks too many. Don't make it a habit. Do it once or twice, if you need to. But my sort of other thing for people is, as you know, I occasionally, for an old bloke, I still hang around and try and keep relatively fit. That's my thing. But I don't care if it's stamp collecting or doing cartridge flooring. Whatever you do that takes your mind off it, keep doing it. I like doing stuff. It stops my head, even when nothing's going on in my life, my head bounces around 100 miles an hour. So I need to have, a bunch of stuff going on. And like I said, I don't know how many of us are out there that are like that, but whatever your strength is, whatever you do that keeps you on the straight and narrow, um, do it, involve other people in it. And like you said, check up on people. Now it's this time of year, is a nasty time for this sort of stuff when it should be a happy time. But I understand why it is. And maybe invite somebody around if you know they're like that. Particularly if they're there by themselves for the first time, and there are people missing in their lives they're accustomed to having around. And for the people in that position, okay, this is a shit Christmas possibly for some of us. But does that mean next year will be, or the year after that, or the year after that? We don't. None of us know what's waiting for us in life. But if we're not out there swinging, we're not in the game. And that's the key thing. I know people who've missed kids for decades, and they come back into their lives. And I went 3 years with one of mine. Did I have any idea whether it ever get fixed? No, because we're both as stubborn as all hell and stubborn as each other. But we did, and other people were involved in the process. I, for one, had no idea how he'd react. But it's all fine now. But if you'd asked me, 6 months out, when's that going to get sorted? I couldn't have told you. I had no idea. I just kept myself in a place that I had, I was there.
Well, that's a valid point too. If you weren't here, then it couldn't have been mended.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah. And you pass that on to the next generation. We all know people. I think you've said the stat you quoted before. I've forgotten what the numbers were. But you're sort of handing on the baton to the next generation. It's the wrong baton to hand on, because I know people who've lost family members, sometimes fathers, brothers. I had a cousin who lost a good mate of his when they were in their late teens, probably to do with funny substances in the first instance, but it really messed him up. He found him. Now, the guy that's gone is gone. But I know that my cousin who finally was no longer here, he took his own life at 40. He was 40. He was traumatized as all hell by that. Yeah. And, it might seem like a good idea at the time, but somebody's going to have to find you. And somebody's going to have to clean up. And there's a whole bunch of stuff in life that has to happen. And just because you've opted out, you've sort of, somebody else is writing a story for you. And if you have children, that's not a great example. And like I said, if you want to go to a boxing ring and hit somebody, well, that could work too. Chop down a tree. That was one of my favourite things to do, or whatever. Just dead bits that I could swing around at to get the sillies out. I used to call it.
Yeah, no, well said, mate. And that's the thing too. The valid point I take out of that, I think you're right too. I think it's around about 70% that a child will end up checking out by way of suicide if one of their parents have checked out by suicide. So it does create some sort of long-term trauma and convince these children that, well, it can't be that bad if my mum or dad decided to go out like that. So, yeah, no, for fuck's sake, people, start thinking about the people you're leaving behind, because, it's one of the most hardest topics to talk about, and a lot of people might find offence in what we're saying, but for you people that are going to try to nitpick and go through what me and Draz are sharing, well, you know what, I'm not as polite as Draz. You can go fuck yourself. I've lived this shit. So has Draz. And we're sharing what we share because we lived it, not because we read it in a fucking book somewhere. So for you people out there telling me to put Men's Line or 1-800-RESPECT up on the screen so people have got somewhere to go, don't waste your fucking time. Call a friend. No. Call myself, call Draz, call someone that genuinely gives a shit that's been there and can tell you how to get through. Because nobody likes to suffer in silence. Nobody likes to suffer by yourself. But at the end of the day, you've got to realise, like Draz has pointed out, you're one of a very large team. This system has been targeting us men for 50 plus years. So any wonder we're up to 47 a week taking their own lives, because we are seen as disposable. If we don't support one another, we sure as shit aren't going to get it from any politician or organisation. That speaks volumes, mate. All you've got to do is look at the federal and state funding. I recently got a response from the Attorney General, which was one of the most disrespectful responses I've ever had in my life regarding an
Underwhelming.
level. Yep, and she just fobbed it off like I didn't mention male suicide. She gave me packages on how to contact community services around family law, and no, she clearly sent me a template response because she didn't read my letter. And you know the gutless bastards, they don't even put a name at the bottom of these things. They don't want anybody to be, I can't ring up and say, all right, put George on the phone, he signed off on it, because they just don't want you to know who's fobbing you off. So, mate, and just one quick thing, I'm going to leave the last word to you, but I'm not too proud to beg Australia. And I'm begging every single man not to become a statistic over the Christmas period, because we are being politically and legally coerced into checking out, because it's far easier for them to force us to take our own life than it is for them to acknowledge that we deserve to be treated equally. Do not give these bastards the satisfaction, please. Now, Draz, you're the man with the experience, you're the man with the knowledge, so we're going to let you have the last word, mate. What is it you'd like to tell the blokes out there for Christmas and how to hang on?
Well, firstly, I'd like to see all of you in the new year. We've got a lot of work to do. We don't want to pass this rubbish on to the next generation and the next. And if we don't do this, who the hell's going to? So, most of us blokes like to have a job to get on with. And there's a challenge for all of you. Yourself, Dan, me, there's a bunch of us, but there's nowhere near 90,000. And there's 90,000 that have been through this stuff. So how about a few more of us? Whatever you can do, however you can do it, is welcome. And if we can slow that number down, I'm happy to change my shirt over to another one. I prefer one with a smaller number on it. So give me a hand with that. And we stand up for each other. We stand up with each other. So take away a message. Let's see you next year and let's do something together. Whatever you want to do, you do it. We're happy to help you out, or if you start your own podcast or something else. There's not enough of us doing this stuff, and we're not doing it together. And we need to do all of those things to stop this happening.
Bloody well said, mate. And yes, that would be a great thing for the new year, to see little podcasts like ours pop up everywhere, because they can ignore one or two of us. They sure as shit can't ignore all of us, because we are the overwhelming numbers. They've created that, these bastards. So, Draz, I really appreciate your time, mate, and there's not too many men out there that will have an emotional, deep and meaningful conversation, mate, and show the inside raw bits. So, again, I appreciate you sharing. And as Draz said, people, please, let's look forward to seeing each other next year, and we will change things up, but it can only happen when we all hang around and support one another. So, thanks for tuning in.